just sort of loosened things up, really, and took away a lot of the elitism that was associated with clubbing.
There were rich people, there were poor people.
Scholars and, you know, straight students and, you know, married people, girlfriend, boyfriends.
Black, white, gay, straight.
I mean, rich folks to...
You name it, they were all there.
So everybody was doing house music.
I didn't really start hearing the term house. I want to say like 1981.
It was not only a music, it was a culture.
Back in the days when you were house, you really stuck out.
It's a very feeling, emotional type of music.
You gotta feel the music. You feel it. I can't teach you how to do that, you know?
They're not afraid to actually sweat in what people would call like church clothes or something like that, you know?
We found places to party.
You didn't have to join a gang because you went out to dance and have a good time.
You know, it's nothing to not like about it. It's gonna make you move.
The soundtrack of your life.
There's a little bit of house music in everything.
Music Box, 16th in Indiana.
Remember that song, It's Time to Jet?
The soulfulness of house music, I think that's the key.
Hi, I'm Lolita Holloway, and I am the undisputed godmother of house.
Hi, this is Frankie Knuckles, and this is the story of house music.
The unusual suspect, Chippy and Kimmy D. Don't you forget it. Chippy, do your thing, baby.
It started in Chicago, though.
It did come from Chicago. I don't care what it is. People do know that, don't they?
And if you don't know, now you know.
It's been misinterpreted and misused, and many people today just think house is that boom, 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 but they're wrong.
Any music I hear that just kind of makes me move, you know, and just any music doesn't do that.
It's the music that makes me dance the most.
A song that will give you a part of life, a little bit of reality.
Best damn music on the planet and the reason why I spin. The definition of house music is a mixture of what happened in Chicago when disco kind of died out, and yet we still held on to listening to disco music, but then also the influx of Italian and European music with a very synthesizer and drum machine orientation.
House music is essential to my happiness. Freedom, non-prejudice, just a way of expressing yourself. It's just, oh man, it's just like a high. Not a drug, it's a high that, I mean, you just can't explain it, you have to feel it. I mean, a lot of people hear about it and they talk about it, but unless it's really in your heart, you don't understand. It's just the music and the message.
My definition of house is a chance to take disco a step further.
Something about house music, you just go into this whole other area.
Create a new sound.
A whole different level.
It was like a house, big house parties, you know, as house music. And I feel it's like R&B, and then later on it became, it developed into tracks.
What I understand house music to be is the DJ himself, his own branding of a track or music.
My definition of house music personally is from a long time back. Music that is like in your house, that's old, that you can take, play around with, and manipulate, and like bring it new.
It's about a feeling.
It is. It was about a groove, too.
A good beat with good vocals, and not necessarily have to be vocals. It could be a track. It could be a nice track, but it can't be no acid track.
more so about the feeling behind the song to me. It doesn't have to be, like great percussion, great drums.
It's like you gotta feel the music. You feel it.
You could just look at somebody and know their house. You could look to somebody, say, hey, where the party at? Because you knew they just had the look of a party person.
Yeah, you got the hoochie mama gear, and then, you know, the girls trying to look cute in their little tight outfits and high heels and all that other stuff. They go to that second room. And then you got the guys, you know, trying to look all smooth and la la la, and they over there in that second row too. But then you got the people who listen to the house music are like, you know, either Afrocentric or they have, you know, baggy pants, you know, Timberlands and big baggy t-shirt, you know, because they're dancing. They're not trying to profile and look cute.
Could you spot a house person? I would think. You know, there are some people that were just, you know, you could see them walking down the street, or some who are flamboyant or, you know, real colorful or something.
Valentino to the Moschino Cheap and Chic, all the, let's say, very expensive, unusual casual wear. This is what they were wearing.
Back in the days when you were house, you really stuck out from everyone else. A lot of people sometimes be like, he's weird, you know, he just dressed weird, you know, because you weren't wearing, you know, a lot of the stuff that these people were wearing. You weren't wearing Run DMC, My Adidas shirts and things like that. You were wearing the Armani shirts with the big ass eagle on it, you know, a Gucci belt with the big G's, Jabols. When these people wearing Lee jeans and Bucks, you know, it was a big difference. You know, our hairstyles, you know, used to see sisters with their hair all cut off or a big box or something like that. And people used to, you know, like people used to tell me I look like Frankenstein, you know, because of my, you know, my haircut and things like that. But they didn't know, you know, they totally didn't know what it was about. You know, we were deep into it.
I would say the energy of house music, the soulfulness of house music. I think that's the key for me. The soulfulness. When you find that one record that just turn you on, you know, it's the soulfulness of it for me.
It's a very feeling, emotional type of music.
Because we all know how many records come out, but how many records stick with us throughout our whole lives, and kind of every time you hear it, it brings back memories, whether happy or sad or what have you. It becomes the soundtrack of your life.
I was working here every now and then at a club called the Smart Bar, which is up on the north side of Chicago. And somewhere in between there, I met up with this really well-known underground DJ from Chicago who was, people would chase around and stuff all the time. His name was Wayne Williams.
One thing that helped was this radio broadcaster named Herb Kent, who at the time he had been on VON, which turned into GCI, and he'd been a radio legend, and he got his own show on WXFM. He used to come to my party sometimes. Herb was an amazing guy because he was a real older man, but he would hang out with everybody, and then he started doing, he said, come on, do some hot mixes for me. And at the time, there was a station, WDAI, but they had these white DJs on there who would play this kind of like white disco music. And so when I started doing hot mixes on WXFM for Herb Kent, it became a real popular show.
The real underground stuff that we danced to, we were exposed to it by the radio show that Herb Kent had in 1980, I believe. And from that show, he played B-52s, he played Devo, he played The Police, and then mixed into that, he played some disco records like Martin Circus.
When they played Martin Circus on the radio, we lost our minds. you know, because see, that was sacred to us. Those songs like that were sacred, and you know, the street people weren't supposed to hear that. It was only for us punk kids, you know, who would go out to the underground clubs and do Sawyers and Gucci parties and stuff like that. We didn't think that they should be listening to our music. But then it was picked up so much, you know, and the media jumped on it, and then all of a sudden you start having Martin Circus on VON every night.
But that stuff was it was different. It was an alternative to what they were playing on the radio or on the R&B stations. And the kids, like people my age or my peers, were really into it.
What contributed to my interest in house music were the people around me who were interested. I've always been interested in music, and I'm attracted to other people who are interested in music. And Lynn Bloom certainly gave me access to very interesting people. It was a magnet high school with kids from all over the city. Steve Hurley actually was in my class. We used to sit on the bus together, and he'd say, hey, listen to this. I got this little thing, and he'd show me, oh, this is how you flange, and this is how you mix. And so we were in the same class together. And it was just kind of, you know, disco DAI.
I haven't been one that's been influenced by, say, another DJ or a previous DJ. Although I can say that there was one once upon a time, but this is way, way, way before most people's time. Kenny Jason, that they know as Kenny Jam and Jason from BMX, was on the station before BMX called Disco DAI.
A friend of mine, he convinced me to submit a tape to a radio station that was going to be flipping formats. That was WDAI or WLSFM, the ABC affiliate, and they went on the air as Disco DAI, and I went on the air with a mix show.
Mind you, I was only 15 at the time, but there was a club up the street called the Jeffrey Pub, and there was a DJ in there called Michael Ezebuku, who was DJing, and he would play it. And it's funny because at that time, the DJ at the Den 1 where I went was Ron Hardy, but I didn't know him. You know, it was my first time going to that club, so I didn't really know him then. And then Michael at the Jeffrey Pub, he told me, you know, where he buys his records, and then there was a new club that had just opened up downtown called US Studios, the Warehouse, and the DJ at the time when I went was a guy named Robert, and he was DJing, and Robert was okay. He wasn't that good though, you know. He was all right though, you know.
Actually, I learned from Frankie and Larry, because I used to hang out with them all the time in New York, you know, and go to different parties, and then other DJs there in New York, you know. And then knew a lot about music myself, you know.
The original name of the warehouse was US Studio.
Well, it was called Us Studio, actually. That was the name of the corporation. I had made the corporation there. It was called Us Studio. But because of it being in warehouse loft spaces, the kids nicknamed it the Warehouse.
And by that time, Frankie had established himself because he was, you know, a way better DJ than Robert was, you know, and which Robert knew. I'm sure that's why he brought him.
Well, he just flew here and did a couple of guest spots at the Warehouse, you know. I was still playing then, and then I tried to persuade him that, you know, I couldn't do it, you know. He had to help me out. So he said, okay.
Well, he was a great host for the 206, for the Warehouse. He made sure everybody walked in that place had fun. And literally, he spoke to literally every person in there. If you didn't speak to him, he spoke to you. Well, he made sure everybody had good fun. To this day, love him dearly. He's still a great guy.
It was like finding home for me. It really was. I felt so excited. It's like these are people like me. These are people, and the music was always good, and I just always had fun.
Well, I don't know, it was different for me because I lived there for a long time. When I first moved to Chicago, I probably lived in the warehouse for about a year, maybe a year and a half.
Just one night, they were like, we're going to this place called the Warehouse, and you don't know nothing about this. And I was like, no, I never heard of it.
This was a little bit pre my time. Like maybe I was 12 and people older than me in their 20s were going to 206 Jefferson.
So I went to this party at 206 South Jefferson, and I mean, like, totally changed my life.
But I remember specific moments. I remember hearing a little bit of jazz at the Warehouse, just coming down the stairs and hearing that record on that system. I still remember that.
There were certain diehards that were always outside in front of that club every Saturday night, 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock thereafter, just waiting for that door to open.
For some reason, a song that really reminds me of the Warehouse is Billy Ocean, One of These Nights. That's a strong Warehouse song. I remember the first time I heard it, standing on the stairs, waiting to get on, waiting to get in, and that beat, that doom, 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 doom.
I remember like always leaving the house about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's like I remember going to the Warehouse and like you come out and it was daytime, and you're not, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning and people would go to breakfast. It was just a weird experience.
I got there maybe about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I walked up the stairs, and then you pass through like a little lounge room, then you go down the stairs into this like basement, but the walls were pitch black, and sometimes they used to put sheets on the ceiling, just white sheets, and then the colors from the lights would bounce off those white sheets onto the black walls. It was incredible. It was just an incredible euphoric feeling that you got. And then the music was the sounds were ridiculous. They had speakers on each side, and it wasn't that wide, so it was kind of narrow, so the music was very impactful. And then they had these tweeters that would hang down, so when he cut it off, all you hear is then all of a sudden boom, boom, boom. I mean, it was crazy. It was bananas.
And it was almost like it was surround sound. It was just bouncing all over the room.
A friend of mine, Richard Long and Associates, had to teach us how to operate the equipment that they gave us.
Well, Richard Long, that worked with Larry in designing all those speakers and everything, actually came out and did the installation for me at the Warehouse at 206 South Jefferson Street. Thank God Robert knew Richard, and Richard knew Robert as well. And so it made it easier. And plus, I had worked for Richard. I mean, Richard taught Larry and I everything that we know about sound.
It felt like this train was coming into this side of your body and out the other side of your body. I can't explain it to you.
And how it just flowed,
right.
The sound of a train passing, just like flowing in and out.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'll let Frankie select that. The DJs, I think it's important that DJs select their own equipment since they have to work with it,
System was separated. We had divorce tweeters hanging over the dance floor, and then we had our mid-range and our mid-bass, and then there was a sub-bass. So actually, and I used a 4-way crossover network that was originally designed by Richard and Larry.
Because you go to other clubs and people seem to stand around. They didn't want to sweat. They were all dressed up.
Right.
Yeah. And you went there and it's like you could sweat and dance and just be free.
Yeah.
It was a very neat crowd, and very peaceful. Not a lot of fights it wasn't no crazy. People just came to dance, and they would just dance and sweat. It wasn't like a big drug using crowd or anything it was all about the music. It was all about the music.
You didn't come there to stand around or sit around.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't get dressed up to go to the warehouse. T-shirt and shorts. Remember people used to bring their little gym bags with their little dancing clothes in it.
The heat,
Yeah.
you know, and the sweat. And you know, that's one actually some of my most vivid memories, and one of my most vivid memories of the warehouse is that somebody would always fall out. Every week you would see them carrying somebody out.
I remember.
And I remember one week it was my turn. Okay. Every time I hear Ashford Simpson found a cure, that's the song that I fell out on.
You know, Frankie and I have actually become pretty good friends recently. You know, we knew each other in passing, obviously, back then. He was always very gracious to me in making tapes.
I remember I used to always go, like we would go to Frankie's house Saturday morning. A friend of mine was like, "Come on, let's go over to Frankie's and get our names on the guest list." I'm like, "Okay." So we go over to Frankie's little studio right off Broadway. "Hi, Frankie. This is my friend Eleanor. Hi, Frankie. You know, could you get our names on the guest list, please?" And he would. We go in. We always have a little tape. "Frankie, can you make us a tape, please?" You know, it's like, haven't we done enough? We got now we want a tape.
He actually came down to a party that I was DJing at for the Chosen Few, and he recorded me. And I didn't know who he was. I had no idea until after he had left. And once I found out, I was like, oh my God. You know, and I was like, oh my God, damn, he actually came and recorded me. And I had no idea who he was because I never went to the warehouse. I was too young at the time.
Missed the Den one completely. I missed the warehouse completely because even though I worked right down the street, but I didn't realize what the place was. And I worked nights, so I would always see crowds, but I didn't know what was going on.
For the ladies, it was a fashion show. Definitely. For the men, it was seeing how many women you can get with and what party we were going to on the weekend.
I went to high school at Whitney Young, class 83.
Went to high school at Lynn Tech.
Oh, I went to Kenwood and I came out in 84.
Whitney Young.
I went to Lynn Bloom High School.
I really would have wanted to go to Kenwood. I really belonged to Kenwood. I don't know why my mama sent me to Whitney Young. I had to get on that it was an hour-long ride.
I started out at Mendel and then I transferred to Kenwood High School.
I went to Whitney Young High School for 1 year.
Kenwood was a trip.
We were doing the sock hops at Whitney Young. Me and my friend Lamar Brown, Kurt Landrum, and one or two other cats that was in our little crew.
In his briefcase, everybody's carrying books. Pops had all the pluggers for the parties that were coming out.
In high school, it was a big house music movement then. Izod, you were either, preppy, Izod polo days, Argyle socks.
Your Izod, your polos, or things like that. You had that group of people.
It was just more than just going to class and stuff. It was a whole social thing.
I was in a little club. All the high schools had different party clubs. My club was the Little Rascals out of Curie. And, it was all about fun, getting together, meeting people.
The dance groups were born. If you want to call them gangs, that's what gangs were back then. The dance groups, the Americans, the Bostards, the Gucci's, the Spy Guys.
Everybody had their little baseball cap on. The Rude Boys, their little polos or whatever and jeans.
Of course, when I got to high school, I started going to the high school dances.
I wasn't a hard partier though.
We were more like Mendel
parties. Yeah. Catholic school
That's
parties.
Where it started off.
Yeah.
I never made it to Mendel. And I regret that.
It was real popular because all the girl Catholic high schools used to come to Mendel when we gave our parties.
And I used to go to Mendel parties all the time.
The top high school parties you hear about were the Mendel parties, because Mendel was known for the gym room and the cafeteria right below it. And us wiring or having two sets of DJs, the Mendel bi-level disco.
House music got me through high school. It got me to graduate because that was my release.
Yeah, those are some special times.
The first two times I got the whooping of my life. Came in at like 4 in the morning. said she wasn't gonna let me do it. I mean, I cried and booed-hooed, went out the next night, did the same thing. Did this repeatedly over the weekend.
Parents never allowed us to do anything that we did. Are you kidding?
Oh, I lied all the time to my mother, constantly.
My mother was out of town and I went with my girlfriend. She didn't know it.
My mother was rather strict, so a lot of times I would sneak out. And I would pull a Ferris Bueller, you know, make up the bed, make it seem like I'm in there asleep, and I would sneak out the window, you know, and go to these parties.
I was a trustworthy girl, so, you know, whatever I told them. You know, I can't remember. I could have been over my neighbor's house or, you know, mama didn't pick us up on time, trying to call. I can't tell you what the best excuse it was. Whatever, it worked.
A couple of times and say I was spending the night over your house. I think I lied a couple of times. But
A few people did.
Yeah, everyone was staying over their house.
You know, well, I mean, either they would, you know, friends would pick us up, and there would be some times where I would just tell my neighbor, I said, hey, he lived across the alley from me. Because, you know, when you're a teenager, you got tricks, you got skills, you know you're going to get to that house party. And he would roll the trash can over to my window because it was in the back, where the backyard is, and there'd be a canopy. So I would make my exit once everybody was asleep, and I would raise up the window, and he would have it sitting there, the trash can, so I could just, I wouldn't hurt myself when I jumped down.
I don't want to say I was sneaking back in the crib or nothing like that, but, you know, yeah, I came in after 2, going to, you know, the music box a few times. I went there. That was going on at 5 or 6, so I can recall being there, but yeah.
People were basically trained to come to a party at 1 o'clock. And that's from starting back from the warehouse to the power plant to the music box. Most of these places didn't open till that time. And a lot of people didn't come to these places till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning after they've been, you know, doing their thing or whatever. You know, I mean, there's been parties where I've taken a nap and gotten up at 1 o'clock on a Saturday night to get ready to go out.
Coming out from the club, like Adelia said, and it's light outside, and you know, everybody go have breakfast or go to the movies.
Go to the movies.
Go to the movies. Where that came from? Being a teenager, I think. Because we really should have been trying to go home and take a bath.
That's true. I was 16. Fake ID. No. Fake ID. Until Ron Braswell called me and said, you are not of age. He said, this idea is not right. Come back until you're of age. I was like, okay. I waited a year. I was still not of age. I turned 17. And my ID still said 18. And I got in free for my birthday. But I was actually 17 still.
Once I went and they called me down. I had been going for a while. And they called me out to the front door. And they said, well, we heard that, you know, you were too young. You have a fake ID and you're only 14. I was like, no. You know, I'm not old enough to be here. They really couldn't prove it, and then they accepted that. I went back in. And I was insulted. It's like, I'm not 14.
I didn't, like I said, I didn't go to the loft when it was open. And I'm especially glad I didn't go after I heard the roof was, the floor caved in or something.
Actually, I first met Craig Loftus. Craig was a promoter with a group called Vertigo that used to give parties at the loft.
We had a little group called Vertigo that was trying to basically imitate what was going on at the warehouse. It's presented to our age group. So what we would do is we would rent a place called The Loft, which was on 16th and Michigan. And we would give parties, but we make our parties, really nice and exclusive. Whereas back in the day, you had all the other groups doing parties and things like that, and they'd print up thousands and thousands of flyers to pass out and hit everybody. Vertigo had one strict rule. Our pluggers were off the hook, and we would only make 3,000 flyers, and that was it. It was 3 of us in a group, 1,000 apiece, that was it. And our parties were always off the hook because we didn't do them every week. We did them periodically, like once a month and stuff like that. And after the party was over, all the really cool kids would leave our party and we'd all go head into the warehouse.
You know, I don't remember any other names. There was another guy that I remember along with Craig, who were sort of the main guys in Vertigo. And if I'm not mistaken, they used to have these red T-shirts. And maybe Craig can verify this, but I think they used to wear these red that said Vertigo on the back.
The original members of Vertigo was myself, Eric Bradshaw, Steve Moore. And then in our latter years, we incorporated the first female DJ ever on that scene, and that was Lori Branch. And Lori Branch was one of the hottest female DJs in existence still today. You know, I have not yet met a DJ, a female DJ, period. She can hold her own with half the guys that I know, you know, because she studied real hard and she's good. She's good.
I got started DJing because one of my classmates at Lindblom, his name was Eric Bradshaw, was interested in making money. And he thought a really good way to make money was to, throw parties. And so he and a couple of other guys, Greg Loftus, who's a DJ now and a record producer, and Steven, I can't remember Steven's last name, but Steven, Craig, and Eric created this group called Vertigo. And it was just, kind of a social club to throw parties. And they threw parties at the Loft, this place called the Loft, which was a really popular hangout for teenagers back in the day. And I was a friend of Eric's, and he knew my interest in music, and he was like, it would be really a cool gimmick. He thought it'd be a great gimmick to have a girl DJ. I didn't actually know the techniques back then, but he knew I was interested. So I would come to the parties, and eventually he ended up, he made a lot of money. I mean, it was a very lucrative thing for a high schooler, 17, 18 years old, to throw these parties. You walk away with $3,000, $4,000 after a night. So we ended up buying equipment. I think we had just graduated from high school. We bought equipment. They put it in my house. They hooked me up with this guy named Jose, who was a really good DJ. And he sort of mentored me. And I knew that I could do it, because I'd seen other people spin. It still was relatively new art form, this mixing and all this business. But I was excited and just sort of taught myself how to do it. And we'd have little contests, me and Craig and Jose, mixing in and out of each other's, in your mama's basement kind of thing.
Like I said, they were really into the music. I mean, the floor would just bounce up and down. The walls would be sweating.
I think I met Tony Hatchett first, and I must be getting really old because I don't remember any of these initial meetings, but Tony and I sort of became DJ partners at the same time that Tony was also partners with Wayne and Jesse. So there was a period of time where I wouldn't say we were rivals, but we weren't a crew together, and Tony was part of their crew, and Tony was my partner as well. This is around 1978, 79.
So we had parties coming. So I said, man, we need some more DJs so I can get this party over here and do this party over there, and you guys take half my records over here, the other guy take half my records over here, and so then I got Tony Hatchett, who's a friend, and Alan King, who was going to University of Chicago High School, and so then I just started teaching this DJ crew.
I was DJing house parties basically, and then I went to this party at this place called The Loft, and that was like my first experience of like hearing like Salsoul and Prelude and those kind of labels, their material, and I was like blown away because I didn't even know this stuff existed, and that's what kind of got me into quote-unquote house music.
Believe it or not, back then the DJ was the chosen few. There was Wayne Williams, Alan King, and Tony Hatchett.
I went to that place once, and it closed right after that. It wasn't too, so I'm glad I got a chance to experience it. But I think that night, Alan King and Tony Hatchett were playing, and I was real impressed with the way they were blending records, and the music that they were playing was just like, it wasn't just a beat, it was moving my soul too. So it kind of just got to me.
And to let you know a little secret, Andre Hatchett was debuted at my party, at a Vertigo party. I never forget it. I walked in one day, it was a generic punk. You remember when Jules had the generic labels? Every time you walk in Jules, they had this whole generic section. We actually took, when it was punk out days and all that, we took a plugger and made a plugger just like the generic label and called it generic punk. We even sold generic pop that day. You know, it was off the hook. I walked into the main dance floor area, and you know, the party was going real good. You know, everything was banging, and all of a sudden I look up on the stage, you know, where the DJ section was. There's this little bitty boy up there with the headphones, big old headphones, he had a little bitty head and big old headphones. And I went up to Wayne, I was like, Wayne, who the hell is this? You know, I don't know who this is, I pay for you all. He was like, it's Tony Hatchett's little brother. Come on, man, just give him a chance, let him play, he can go.
Sometimes it'd be once a month, and either Friday or Saturday, and they would be so crowded. And I remember one time the party was so crowded, it was on the second floor, and across the street was a fire department. And the people, because we closed the door down, they actually went across the street to the fire department, got a ladder, climbed up to the second floor to get in the party. It was incredible. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. But
Disco Tony Shelton was there every week. Kevin 6'3" Heron, who actually had a dance named after him, the 6'3", which was, don't ask me to do it, but it was a dance.
We did some pretty big parties too, like we did one at the Aragon Ballroom. That was a huge, like, multi-school kind of thing. We did some at high schools. We did them all over the place. It was a couple years. I mean, this was a short period. It was really maybe a couple years, 2-3 years, where we just sort of were crazy with it.
The Loft was really, I have the fondest memories of.
I use my mom's records, you know. Heck, I can go back to when I was 9 years old. I used my mom's 45s. She had her initials on the good sides. So when we had the little family basement party, they finally let little John, let him play records. I put on one record after the other. Every record I put on, they were like, hey, he's jamming. I knew at 9 years old what I wanted to do.
I just had if you know how a glove fits your hand perfectly, that's how I took to DJing. It was just a perfect thing. Just, it felt right.
I love playing records, so I get a rush out to seeing other people lose their minds on the floor. It's like almost a control thing, but at the same time, it's beautiful.
You go to these parties, and some of the times people are having a good time, but a lot of times they weren't really having a good time. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I bet you I can make these people really have a good time.
But it's funny, once you get that DJing in your blood, you find people like you very easily.
My first actual DJ setup was in my parents' living room. People could walk by and hear me playing music. I actually met Steve Poindexter that way. Well, he met me because he heard me playing music and rang the doorbell. Are you a DJ? Yeah, I'm a DJ.
One of my partners, he actually had turntables and everything, and he would be spinning. So then we started throwing parties. As time went on, I started disagreeing with some of the records that he was playing. And, you know, and I was like, well, you know, I just kind of wanted to hear, you know, this time or whatever, you know, and he was just like really stubborn about it. So then I started going to his house to play records, you know, and I'd ask him. After a while, I started noticing, and like friends started noticing, like, hey, that beat is on, you know, and I'd be asking him, I was like, is it on? He'd be like, no, it's not on. I was like, wait, I was like, it sounds like it's on. I'm thinking it's me. Then, you know, finally, one of my cousin actually told me, he's like, hey, you know what, you know, your beat was on. It was actually on, you know. He didn't tell you the truth. It was actually on. So I found out he just didn't, I don't know what he wasn't telling me. So in 1993, we moved out to the city. And we lived together. And I would ask him periodically, hey, can I play, you know, you mess around with turntables, because I started liking it, you know, it was like addictive. And he's like, no. Finally, after so many times of going back and forth, he told me I was irresponsible, I guess. That's what he told me. Finally, he was just upfront with me. He's like, if you really want to be a DJ, get your own shit.
I saved my money working downtown and went to some record store and bought this thing called a mixer. And he says, a disco mixer, you can mix 2 records. And I'm like, that's what I think I need. I think that's what I need.
The folk stuff, the Marantz receiver, no mixer, 1 table. I think I then graduated from 1 table and a cassette deck, neither of which you could control, pitch control, so that was interesting.
Direct drive techniques, and the mixer was, the #1 mixer was the Clubman.
Two Technique turntables. They weren't the 1200s, but 2 Technique 2 Technique turntables. I had a Clubman mixer.
I always had my boom box with me wherever I went. It's like I was in Jack and Jill. All of the events we did with Jack and Jill, I was the one that supplied all the music on the buses to Great America, Old Chicago, or wherever we went. And as I got a little older, I started being a little bit more creative with it, and kind of making things do what they weren't supposed to do, which is my MO now when I DJ anyway. But back then what I was doing was I was taking a cassette deck with a pause button and making my own remixes and stuff, right?
He took me to the store, and the salesperson was like, well, why does he need 2 of the same turntables? My dad was like, I don't know, but that's what he wants.
I had a room on the 2nd floor of my parents' house on the south side, and it was in my bedroom. And for some reason, my parents were very cool about the whole situation, because we would sit up there till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning some nights, spinning music.
It's funny because with the Clubman, it's a crossfade. And because that's how I started out, to this day, I still use a crossfade, where a lot of DJs just go up and down. But to this day, I still use a crossfade, and I love it. I'm not gonna change.
This was what I learned to do. This was before the mixers were as, beautiful and complex as they are now. We used to have these little Newmark mixers, and people who DJ know this. It was like one of the first ones out there, and it didn't even have a crossfade. It just had, up and down channels. And the way that I got away with practicing was that I just had the music in my head. I didn't have it on the speaker, so I would have, so the room ambiance music on both channels, and then the cued in sound only on 1 channel. So I learned really how to mix without even hearing music outside of my head. It was all in there. So I could DJ and practice till 5 o'clock in the morning, and it would all be up here.
I'm always watching what the crowd is doing, and I still bring like 3 or 4 big crates of records. Other people walk in with a little box, and I still walk in with 3 big crates like this at least, because I never know what I'm gonna want to play. I always want to feel like, when I used to DJ at a club on a regular basis, I had all my records with me almost, So I always want to get as close to that as possible, because you never know when you play one record and you see how the crowd reacts. All of a sudden, it just hits me. Oh man, I gotta play Ashford and Simpson, Found a Cure, or oh man, I could be playing all new music, and then I just want to bust out and play something from back in the day. And if I don't have it, I'm gonna be kicking myself in the butt, wishing I had it. So
back in my day, when we were coming up, it was Battle of the DJs all the time.
We'd hand draw stuff. We would make these huge banners where we would at 3 o'clock in the morning go and string them up on 95th Street or the Dan Ryan. So, no one would take them down to at least the afternoon, so at least all the kids going to school would see it once.
We hung posters. We worked hard. We hit every light pole in the city from the north side all the way out to 159th at Seton High School. We hung posters like a month. We had guys that weren't even in our group helping us. Jerry McAllister, Timmy McAllister. We were all piled up in Kenny Baker's little Omni or whatever. It was like a shoebox. It was like 10 guys in this little car. But whenever we came to an intersection, we all jumped out like clowns and hung the signs and then jumped back in.
Everyone. I mean, we've had black, white, Asian, straight, gay. There's really no person that comes to the party. It's just, those who enjoy what we're doing and want to be a part of it.
I always loved music, and when I found out I could mix with two turntables for my brother, I had a field day.
I have a brother that's 4 years older than me, and he loved music. He would come home with 2 of the same albums, and my father couldn't understand. Like, you stupid.
Basically, I was hired at BMX back in '82 to host the Saturday Night Live Ain't No Jive Chicago Dance Party, which featured the Hot Mix 5.
He invited Farley, Jack Master Funk, who was called Farley Funk and Keith. Actually, none of us had nicknames at the time. It was Kenny Jason, Magic Fingers. I mean, that's what I did have that one, but he invited Ralphie, invited Farley. It was Farley Keith and Mickey Oliver and Scott Sills. The 6th person was Jeff Davis. He was a local DJ here in Chicago, and he didn't make the meeting, and that kind of upset him, and because he didn't show up and didn't call, it became the Hot Mix 6 went to be in the Hot Mix 5. So we went on the air as the Hot Mix 5, and the station did some imaging for us, and basically after a couple months, the show was on fire. We were up in the high 20s, almost a 30 share of the audience at the time. There's nothing else that's ever surpassed it.
I remember one time, this might sound crazy, but I was blown away by it. One night, just out of, just having fun, I told everybody at Russian Division, which, a lot of clubs and stuff, and folks would go down there in the summer and, have a good time. One night I said, everybody out of Russian Division, honk your horn. The following day, a friend of mine came up to me and he says, "You're not gonna believe what you did last night." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I was on the air, I didn't do anything." He goes, "No, man, everybody had BMX on, and you said, honk your horns. And for 2 blocks, it was just crazy. Everybody just honking and blowing their horn." And I was like, man, I never thought about it being, having that kind of an impact.
It was a specialty show. It was a club show. It was a show where there was nothing else like it.
Yeah, I became a member of the Hot Mix 5, believe it or not, after I lost a battle that I felt I should have won. But anyway, that's another story.
There was a rumor that Frankie and I had a battle of DJs. Frankie and I have never, I'm trying to think. Frankie and I have never played live in the same location.
Once I started buying some of these other records, I didn't want to turn back. I didn't really want to deal with the stuff that was on the radio anymore. I started going to that store called Imports, etc., and places like that.
We were already going to Imports, buying records. We'll spend our allowance or lunch money, maybe buy 1 or 2 records a week.
Part of this competitive spirit was to top the next guy. So it was always fun to race down to the local import store and find the latest new thing that you could play on the turntables.
There was only one place to shop, and that was Import Records, which then was located in Plymouth Court.
Talk about the imports, and I had to stand in that long line for like 3-4 hours, and I was cold. And she wanted mainline, I wanted hot shot, I think, and I had to give her my money so that she could get mainline. That was like $40, $50, $50 per record.
The most important part is finding these right records and picking them and then playing them for your crowd.
I would select records from what we would hear when we get to the store. They will, most of the time when we get there, they will be playing stuff, and we're like, oh, that's nice, So we will, listen to what they're playing, and we'll like pick it up from there if we already didn't hear it from a club or somewhere else.
Brett Wilcox, who was very influential. I don't know, it's funny, a lot of people don't mention his name too much, but he was very influential because he was, he had a great ear, very good ear.
At the time when it first was open, when I first was going there, no, I didn't know anybody there. But once they more progressive, progressive on and everything, moved on, Chip came in, he started working at their new location and everything. And, I would go in there. He knew what I liked. And he would, like, hey, I got this for you. Here, check this out. Listen to this. Listen to this. I'm like, cool.
I won a DJ battle with Sawyer's on technique and on, speed, going back and forth on the turntables, doing a great blend. And I found out that crowd, for that battle, that was cool. I won the battle, but then when I won that battle, I ended up being able to DJ for that crowd. I got what I wanted, but I found out that they weren't necessarily into tricks on a nightly basis. It was about the music that you played.
We would buy a lot of that Euro stuff, along with some of the punk out stuff. We weren't buying disco back then, because that wasn't being played on Herb's Kent show. So we were basically buying music that would fit his format, because that's what we were into.
And that's so important, because to me, if you don't play the right records, it doesn't matter, because what are people gonna dance to? You have to have the right records. And I think that you don't even have to mix, as long as you're playing the right records.
Father of house music. That is a dangerous question. One person I know who it is not is me.
Who was Kurt Landrum? Kurt Landrum was a good friend of mine. We went to high school together. Very open person, very a loving person, a person who loves to have fun, loves to be buck wild. He likes to be on edge as much as he could be. I think during his him going to school at Columbia College, he met Chip, and he and Chip collaborated, and he helped Chip put together Chip's first record, which is Time to Jack, and Jack tracks. So Kurt was a special guy.
It was just a collaborative effort, between all parties that were involved with Jack Tracks. And it's just, it was just a thing, having a good time, putting something out there, seeing how it worked. And I know a lot of people don't really understand, or the foundations get kind of lost, just because of how things progress. But I think it's really important to understand the basic foundations and the basic idea of where something develops from. And that is, I think one of the main singles that created the whole house genre.
In the crib, my father threatened to throw the stereo out the window because it was just so loud. But, we had all of the music, all of it. And like I said, I was partying in the room, sweating, time to Jack, all of it.
The Jack Tracks, I believe, was, it's one of the foundations of where, not so much as like the only direction that house music went, but it was like, it was one of the foundations of, okay, this is house music. And this is like where a lot of people could relate to this original style. They took that, and that's where they kind of developed all their styles from that basic element of tracks like the Jack Tracks EP. And I think that's if you listen to many songs that came after that, you can tell was the main influence behind a lot of the following tracks in the future with house music. And still today, that 808 sound, that the samples, the type of energy that's behind it, the snare rolls, that raw energy. It's the mainstay.
House music was A record that perfectly described it was a record about a man holding the camera, time to jack. One time for shit else but the jack.
Right. One day, some guy came in. He said he was in the music business, and you know, he was just like, hey, he liked what I was doing. He saw I had this keyboard, and he wanted to know if we could get together, and you know, he could work with the keyboard, and you know, we can work on a track together. I vaguely remember him as Chippy, but you know, so he presented the situation. We got together and started working on this project, an EP project, which ended up coming out being Jack Tracks, which I guess is now like a classic, you know, house track EP.
And that is where the house music really has its roots, because the DJ, us, we were making tracks. And, we were doing this along with other people in the market that basically would hang out with us, the Jesse Saunders, Chippy, everybody like that. And basically everybody was coming up with things to play on the dance floor.
Yeah, they lost their mind, you know. You know, it was just kind of like something like, you know, this is what we've been waiting for, you know, and it arrived, you know, it was there.
Actually, the very first one I remixed was Chippy's Like This. I forgot all about that.
You had people like Derek May and, you know, Chippy doing what was then called, you know, it was like house music. This word house music came up. And then back then, it was, I think, the true definition to me of what house music is was Chicago, little Chicago DJs and musicians trying to imitate what they heard, like say from South Soul and all the real heavy New York grooves. What we would do is we'd buy electronic equipment and we'd come home and we would try to imitate what we heard. And it became a raw form, you know? It was just really raw, and everybody just got into it. It was just a funky groove.
I taught my brother how to DJ. So there was a record called On and On that he did, that he actually took. It was an import record that I bought and I had, and it was a real popular record. And he couldn't find it, he couldn't get it. He always used to ask me for it, and you know, sometimes I wouldn't let him use it, so he got upset. So he said, I can do this record, you know, so he bought him a drum machine and just made it himself and became a real big record. So he started his label called Just A Records.
It's said that it's a record called On and On that I co-wrote with a guy by the name of Jesse Saunders.
So he started his label called Just A Records. And so I said, hey man, since you know, I turned you on DJing, why don't you turn me on? I'm gonna put a record out, you know? And he's like, okay, well, write a record, you know? What song do you have? So I wrote this song called Undercover. And when you're playing a scene that you don't really mean, you're undercover, and I had this real weird voice. Undercover, you know, real like that. And
well, you know, going back to the house music scene, the one thing that I really reflect on is the opportunity that it gave so many young, talented DJs, and as far as growing and developing, becoming producers, remixers, recording artists, you know? And when I think back on the house music scene, that's what I like the most, that so many young kids, talented kids were given an avenue to really grow and develop a talent and something that they had a passion for.
Right, you know, because I was just trying to put out a record and pay my dad his money back that I borrowed. You know, I borrowed money to put the record out, and I promised him I'd give it back, and that's all I was really looking to do, was just get my record out.
I'm just a DJ, you know. A lot of my buddies, you know, Steve Hurley, Chip E, everybody got started in that. I just never had an interest in that. It was always about the music. You know, I've always been just a music purist and entertaining people through DJing, you know. So when that whole music thing got started, I never got interested in that. You know, just it was all about entertaining people through sound and music.
Right away, I came up with Mystery Love and Washing Machine. And some friends of mine who were actually more club goers than myself, they were saying that's like the music that Frankie plays at the Warehouse. And they knew about the Warehouse. I didn't. It was like, okay. And then more and more people were encouraging me, saying that you should put this out. This should be out on a record. So me and a buddy of mine, Donnie Hardy, we just did a little bit of research and found out how you would go about pressing up a record. We started with acetate and then pressed up some records and basically started, selling them, at, I think it was Imports at the time, and Gramophone, where we were able to kind of sell them the records, and they kind of went outward from there.
Like this. And I don't think that's really the point, who did the first. I don't think you can just say, okay, I did the first house record, so I am the godfather. I don't think any one person can take credit for this house scene, because everybody had an not an equal part, but everybody had a part in it. Jamie's record, Jamie's tapes on Reel to Reel created so much of a buzz. If it wasn't for Jamie's music, I don't think everybody would have had the courage to even put their stuff out. It was the phenomenon of Jamie's music, how much it was moving the crowd, and how much, once he hooked up with Frankie and Frankie started playing it, and how that crowd reacted, and how it went from Frankie's crowd to the younger crowd that I was DJing for, and Farley and all those guys were DJing for, and made its way all the way to the west side and all over the place. Then I think it kind of gave everybody the courage to say, hey, maybe we need to put this stuff out. And to me, Jesse's biggest contribution was that he was the first businessman of house music. He was an artist and a businessman all in one. And maybe his records didn't reach the charts as much as some of the other ones, but what he did for house music as a business was phenomenal, because he I don't know where he got his money from or whatever, whether he borrowed like I did or what he did, but he found a way to get his music out there, and he promoted the mess out of it and made his stuff happen. And we were all playing it on the radio, and we loved what he was doing. And I think with every record, more and more people started coming out of the woodwork. The Fingers Inc. guys, Marshall Jefferson, Chip E. We all had our own influences, and I think by that first record coming out, everybody said, wait a minute, Jesse Saunders put a record out? I can put a record out. Everybody learned from that example. And then, you got Frankie's role as the person who was playing all this music. He was supporting all of us. We were taking our tapes down to his club, and he played it off of Reel to Reel. There was no greater feeling than me taking Music Is the Key to his club for the first time, and he played it. I Can't Turn Around, and he's playing a record with me singing all out of key, but the beats were hitting and the crowd was going crazy, and it was just a feeling. I think everybody contributed, so there's no one godfather in house music. Everybody made their contribution. By the time I got my record out, it was '85. That's 2 years later. But some people call me the godfather, but I always correct them, because I don't think there is a godfather of house. Yeah, I was one of the pioneers, because my records were some of the first to actually chart and go on a national level. And then Farley's record, Love Can't Turn Around, which was a derivative of I Can't Turn Around. But at any rate, he helped it go to the next level as well, because his record, who's to say that mine would have done as well as his did? I don't hold grudges and dwell on that. I just look at it like everything happens for a reason, and everybody made their contribution however they made their contribution. People like Alan King that were playing the music that made us all want to even make our records in the first place. Wayne Williams, who was one of the DJs that doesn't really get mentioned because maybe his profile wasn't as high, but when I was going to those parties, he was out there just like Wayne, just like Jesse and Andre Hatchett, and Tony Hatchett, and Alan King. All those guys were spinning together, and most of those guys were DJing out of his crate. He's the one who had the music. He may be the one that goes the furthest back as far as music and got to start earliest, out of that next generation. It's just a lot of generations of house music, and everybody played their part.
Overall, I guess I'm gonna have to give Frankie his props. Back then, I'm gonna have to give Frankie Knuckles his, Now I don't particularly care for him. I do Andre anytime. I appreciate it. I went to a party this summertime, and Andre was, he just really, I needed to hear him. It was like I probably could have ran up there and just hugged and kissed him.
I just the favorites, Ron, Frankie, and Andre.
The legend is legendary, it is like some serious-ish. And to be a living legend, that's some amazing-ish, most of the people who are known for what they do post-mortem is when they get recognized. But Andre is, like I said, although it may be a Chicago-wide thing, still in all, people in Chicago recognize, and he's a living legend, and that's kind of an amazing thing.
You all made me the legend. Y'all don't want to label me the legend. All my friends did that because I knew all of them and stuff. They've been to all the parties. They were going to all the parties and stuff. All y'all the one that gave me the name, the legendary Andre Hatchett.
In the music world, Andre's a god. What else can you say about it? He's the Michael Jordan of house music.
I've been DJing since 1979. Whenever I'm about to perform, get on the tables, I don't know what I'm going to play. I'll play it by ear. I just put my stuff up, put my records up there, flip through it, and figure out what I'm going to play first. I like doing that because it makes me create. It makes me creative. I'm like, okay, what you gonna do here? What you gonna do there? What you gonna do next? What you gonna do next? I have certain favorite mixes that I've done, in the past and stuff that I'll keep doing. But other than that, no, I don't know what I'm going to play. It's all a surprise, just as well as to the people, as well as to me. It's all a surprise.
These days, people don't appreciate DJs like they used to. They would know they should be chanting the DJ's name. In unison or just random, all right, Andre, play that ish. They felt it. It was like, hell yeah. Him, Ronnie Hardy, and Frankie.
I didn't sleep. Why not? That was during the time where I was working more. I was doing, you asked me about 2 parties a night. I was doing 3 sometimes. And I made it to all 3, believe it or not. I made it to all 3. But yeah, I wouldn't sleep. I would get top sleep about 3-4 hours, if that. And the next day, I couldn't even sleep during the day because I had other things to do and stuff or whatever, And by the time, the next night come around, I had 2-3 other parties to do.
Then Andre got on, and it was just ridiculous what this guy was doing.
Andre can take 2 records that me and Charlie would never, ever imagine putting together. He'll put them together in such a way, it's like, oh my God. It's no one, I've never heard anybody on this planet that can touch him.
A lot of DJs are like, and me included, if isn't right, I'm not gonna with it. If you're gonna ask me to paint a picture when I'm used to doing with both my eyes, to paint like this, I'm not gonna be bothered. Andre will be like, painting his off,
I'll mix it. I'll find a way to mix it.
Andre Hatchett, I think, is undisputedly probably Chicago's legend.
I continued with the warehouse, and I moved it on 16th in Indiana But during that time, I didn't know that he wanted to change. So it was still the Warehouse at that time. And after that, he told me that he was going to go on and open up his own club. So that left me without a DJ. And the Music Box didn't come about until there was a club on Halsted, which was owned by Michael Graver, a couple of white guys, called the Riverside Club. And they wanted to get rid of it. It was too close to the Greens for them. It was becoming a little too ethnic for them, I felt, you know. And so they brought their proposal to me and Frankie about opening that club. But at that point, the city had said that our club, the Warehouse, which was at that time was located at 206 South Jefferson, that the building was becoming unstable because the kids had stomped the floor in almost, and they felt the building might cave in, which I didn't think so, but you know, that was their opinion. So Frankie was interested in it, and I wasn't quite interested in it. So we had a little, he decided to take the Riverside Club, and I decided not to do that project with him. When we opened the Warehouse with Ron Hardy, the people were still going to the power plant, and they were telling me that they were coming to the Warehouse, but they didn't. So, being a business person, and you have to be crude in business at times, I said, well, I have another business. I have another corporation, the Music Box. So I just changed the name and changed the effects a little. So I sent out invitations to my members, which were a Warehouse, and people were like, well, isn't this a Warehouse? It says a Music Box, but what's this? And who in the hell is Ron Hardy?
I knew about Frankie Knuckles, you know, from an old neighbor, but I didn't know about Ron Hardy. And when I experienced listening to Ron Hardy, because I was too young to go out to a lot of these places. But I listened to one of these tapes that a guy gave to me of Ron Hardy, and it just blew my mind, you know, that this man was throwing down like this at a party, and he wasn't spinning like what I was used to.
The Music Box, I only went to the Music Box a couple of times when it was on Indiana. And I have no doubt that Ron Hardy was a great DJ, maybe the greatest that ever lived. I never really experienced him enough, being from sort of the Frankie crowd and the Warehouse crowd. When I went to the Music Box,
Ron did his thing, Frankie does his thing. It's two different appreciations. I wouldn't put one, you know, on top of the other. It's just, you know, their appreciation is there for both.
I think it was like Tuesday. With Tuesday nights, really.
One day, Ron Hardy used to do the Music Box, used to do a party on Tuesday nights. It was the only club in the city that could ever get away with doing a Tuesday night, and it'd be off the hook, jam-packed, Tuesday night. Who's gonna go out on a Tuesday now? But the Music Box did.
326, I used to do a lot of tagging, and I used to tag addresses of house clubs, and just used to write it down, and just wherever I had a marker or wherever. So, thought about the 326, said, that sounds pretty good. I try to keep the vibe of the Music Box alive, of the raw energy. That's the style that I really try to pattern myself after, the energy of Ron Hardy, because he influenced me a lot. Not trying to say that I'm trying to be Ron Hardy, but he's a DJ that puts so much meaning into being a DJ and house music to me. I feel as though if it wasn't for Ron Hardy, house music wouldn't have got to the level that it was. You still had the radio DJs doing their thing, but Ron Hardy was one of the first Chicago DJs giving a lot of these cats who were making these tracks their first play. you know, in a club. If it didn't work in the box, it wasn't gonna work anywhere else. And that energy in the box, that's the energy that I still try to portray out here to the dance floor, because I feel as though the raw energy of that place is really how a party should be.
And it was one place where you didn't really have to worry about nobody picking on you or bothering you and stuff. It was like everybody was just having a good time. Even though when you see people that like from the neighborhood who normally be acting crazy, they wasn't acting like that. They were acting like the rest of the party people. Kicking it.
At the music box, I didn't, I decided to bring, change the whole format about introducing different people into the club. You know, if you were, belonged to a gang, I wanted all the gang members to come, and, you know, they were so astounded, you know, they, you know, usually different gangs would come together and want to fight, but, you know, I didn't allow that.
A lot of people don't talk about house music from that aspect, how it actually brought a bunch of together that couldn't stand each other. And after the party was over, here we are, 15, 20 years later, talking about, remember this, remember that? Remember I couldn't stand your at first, but now we best friends? I mean, house music unified.
I really feel bad for the kids of today, because you have to think about some of these places we partied at. There would be like between 1,500 and 2,000 kids, and it would be no violence, no guns. Some of these places only had 4 or 5 security guards, and you would have like 1,500 kids, and they just partying.
I just see hardcore folks up in the party like, what you doing here? Came to hear Ron, man.
You know what's
so
funny?
Just to see them cats that let you know, hey, his music is stronger than you think it is.
He was a great DJ. He's a good friend. You know, the man made you jam. He made me jam. You know, he almost gave me a heart attack. Okay, they didn't call him Heart Attack Hardy for nothing. Okay, you know, he made me jam. You know, he's one of the few DJs that will get me on the dance floor and go out there and dance, enjoy myself. You know, the man was just phenomenal. You know, he was a great guy. His music was just great. I loved his mixing. You know, love the way he did things.
I mean, they both have great music selection. Frankie, to me, is more laid back than Ronnie. Ronnie was more, I think, more aggressive as far as the kind of stuff he would play, like harder, like tracks with even more energy, or doing something a little weird or something a little bit left, you know, of what somebody else would do, you know. And he just seeing him do that kind of helped me with keeping my creativity as a DJ, which transferred over to me keeping my creativity as a producer. You know, to see somebody take chances and play records that nobody else would expect to play. I don't know who played Annie Mae first, but, you know, just like records like that you don't, now in Chicago, of course, people know that, yeah, people used to lose it on that, but who was the first person to play that? I don't know who it was, but that's like an example of something that Ronnie would do, or just playing the Jeffersons or something. You know, I mean, just busting out with something that, you know, everybody in that room can relate to, and they're gonna just lose it.
Dancing is sexual anyway, you know. You know, a good dance is equivalent to a good fuck. You know, a lot of people that you're attracted to them because of the way that they dance. You know?
Because the guys and girls would dance real close with each other and be all over each other, jacking and.
Jacking it is, we used to dance with the women, and sometimes the women would jack the men, where you would put your hand on someone's waist while you're dancing, and you're jacking them, you're moving. You're not just out there, you know, dancing, you're really moving your body. And that's what jacking means.
And there are other things going on that dance floor that I might not be able to name, but it was going on. It was really going on, you know. You're saying name it, huh? I mean, they was having sex on the dance floor, like no problem, you know. And I mean, right in the middle of the dance floor, you know. It was incredible, you know. I think that the stories that when we left as DJs, me and Alan and Jesse and Tony, when we left the club, like we get finished about 12 or 1 o'clock and we go grab something to eat. Sometimes we go to IHOP in Hyde Park and we would just sit down and just laugh. And man, we saw that, you see that guy over there in the corner? He had those girls' pants down. I mean, it was incredible, the things we would talk about, and, you know.
Yeah, you know, I had sexual relations.
I've seen things that I don't even want to talk about.
You'd see all kinds of sexual activity going on, and it blow my mind. I'm like, wow. Kind of turned me on, though. You know, it's like, in those days, the word freak was like, oh, you know, you're a freak, you do everything. That was like, it was like, in a way it was cool, but in a way it just depended. Maybe it wasn't so cool. House music just brought out everything and everybody. The combination, just the environment, drinking, partying scene.
A lot of my friends were having sex, using abortion as a means of birth control, and yeah, so, I mean, I'm being real with you, you know. They were doing all kind of stuff, and I didn't get into that either. I didn't lose my virginity until after I was out of high school. So I didn't do stuff like that.
I think that the parties that we were going to, it was just all about the music. It was about the music, it was about sex. You know, pubescent teenagers in love with this music, trying to have sex with each other.
The house music scene, there was a lot of promiscuity going on. You'd think like the 60s and 70s. There was a lot.
I don't think there's nothing wrong with men dancing. I know a lot of guys get out there and dance and stuff, and you know, people think that's just for feminine people or sissies or whatever.
Long as you ain't touching.
You have a good time. You have a good time. Dance how you want to. Because I know a lot of people look like ballerinas and they'll tear you in half. I mean, it's not about, it's the whole two different things. When you're dancing, you're enjoying yourself, releasing stress, you're having a good time, you party.
You know, men dancing with men and women dancing with women. And I was totally like astonished by it, like, but it was such a fun place to be, so.
Well, actually, in my opinion, that's where a lot of this started. You know, I mean, a lot of us, we learned this music from the gay crowd. You know, I mean, we went to their place to party.
Honestly, I think gay people on the whole have a higher understanding of different things. I mean, whether it's music, whether it's food, whether it's clothes, they seem to be just more on top of the whole situation. I think they like to have a good time, and they're not afraid to get out and just let themselves loose on whatever the situation is. It's, you know, like I said, it's about understanding energy, I would say more so, and being able to cope with, you know, that high level of energy.
So being at a club like the Warehouse was like also so freeing because at that time, you know, I was very straight, you know, but it was like everybody was just having fun and nobody judged anybody, you know, drag queens would be there and, you know, everybody, you know, would just have a good time, whites, blacks, Hispanics. It wasn't that kind of thing.
I was 13 at the time. Got a false ID on 63rd and Halsted. Went down there with a little mascara. Went down there. Party. First of all, for a 13-year-old kid to see a drag queen when his hormones is raging, that's just something that would mess with your mental. You know, when you're seeing a drag queen sticking out to here and out to here, and someone tells you that's a man, a young boy's mind can't, you know, can't really handle that.
It's the music in itself is very sexual and sensual, so therefore, that's how everybody portrayed themselves on the dance floor in the party atmosphere, where it didn't matter if it was male or female. Everyone was just feeling the music, and it goes back to what I was saying, house music, it's kind of a free type group, you know, you didn't care. So the boys, male, female, we were just, you know, we made each other dance. If it was two guys, you know, or two females, it didn't matter. I don't think the sexuality, if someone was, you know, gay, straight, bisexual, whatever, it was kind of an unsaid thing.
Some of them were openly gay and some of them were in the closet gay.
Okay.
I don't care about people's sexual preference. It's none of my business. You know, if they were cool with me, then that's all that mattered to me.
I think back then, there was this sort of thing where they were like hiding being gay in a sense, but disco was sort of like bringing them out.
You know, I can tell you, I'll be really straight up with you. My favorite experience where house music was concerned was when I came out personally. And I came out at the warehouse, you know, in terms of my sexual orientation, sort of defining who I was as an adult. And it was something about being in that environment that made it okay. And it was and I know that, you know, with the music and the people, it was just like a love fest going on. And I can remember the night. I can remember the night at the warehouse when I was like 18 years old and I crept up the stairs. There was mostly guys there, you know, it was predominantly. It was interesting because I was with all these guys and they were all playing straight and I was playing straight and they were all gay. You know, we were all like coming out of high school. So since we were all playing straight with each other, we had to dance with each other. So that meant that I'm the only girl, and it's a group of like 6 guys. We'd all pile into my friend's Cadillac and we'd go together. So I'd be in the middle and they'd be dancing around me. They couldn't dance with each other because they were straight. So one night, I was checking someone out who had been checking me out all night, and it was this woman, you know, this young girl like I was. And I'm like, I'm gonna dance with her. And they were so like, what are we gonna do? Okay, y'all have to dance with each other, I don't care. And so we all sort of ended up coming out that night. And I remember it just being really fun, and we just laugh about it to this day. And the music was such a key part of that, you know, just sort of the whole experience. That was my favorite experience that night.
There was always rumors that there was acid in the punch. I didn't drink the punch, so I couldn't tell you. There was always rumors.
We had different levels, and underneath the dance level, you'd go downstairs, and they'd have a beautiful like fruit bar set up with punch in the back. And someone told me don't drink the punch because it was spiked with gas.
Okay, we served them fruit and punch and a few other things. They made it kind of electric, you could say.
I heard rumors that there were drugs in the punch at the warehouse. I don't recall ever being high. And I drank a lot of that punch. Maybe that's why I stayed up all night, I don't know. Because you did dance at 8 or 9 in the morning with no problems, but you know, I contributed that to you.
One time I took that with some guys I had just met at the power plant, and I was with some friends, and my friends left me. They were too daggone high. And I got a ride, and these brothers made sure I got home, but they took me to the park. Because when they gave me this stuff, I started feeling it. It was like 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, or Sunday morning. And I'm on the monkey beams in the park saying, oh, I see the picture, you know, oh, okay, I'm feeling it now. Wow, I feel so light. I can't go home now. My mother's home. And finally, when they took me home, snuck in, you know, went to the back, got in my bed, and my mother knocked on the door. And as soon as she knocked on the door, she wanted to know if I wanted to go to temple. She practices Hinduism. And normally I go to temple with her in the morning. At this point in time, I was like, hi, Mom. I was actually having a Chinese pornographic dream or illusion from this MDA, which is now called ecstasy. And I was just seeing this cartoon of Chinese people having sex.
I got a contact high from all the weed and everything that was burning down there. My guys had got me drunk. Like I said, I'm 13. My mother thinks I'm just staying at this guy's house. She doesn't know I'm out at 2 o'clock in the morning at a, basically, in nowadays term, an illegal ass club.
We did spike the punch because we were only, like I said, we were using the pattern of what we did in New York. We spiked the punch occasionally, you know, because we all took acid and a few things like that in New York, so we weren't familiar with anything else, you know. So that's what we did, you know.
I hope people understand that that's not everybody went to the warehouse. That was our goal, to go there, do acid, and have a good time. It was like the acid was sometimes part of the program, but not always.
You know, there was no drinking or anything like that. It was like, you know, 50 cents for half a can of pop and some beats.
I don't drink, I don't smoke. I just get high off that music.
You know, right now I do drug counseling, you know, to help people who are stuck in what drugs like cocaine can do to you. You know, to me, I think that cocaine was invented to stifle a person's reality, period. No matter how creative they are and how, you know, positive of a person they can be, it was made to keep you at a certain level and, you know, make sure that you don't go beyond that level.
My whole experience is that she sees the posters in my apartment, and she hears some of Daddy's tapes and hears me signing off and whatnot. And what I tell her about my experience is you could have a good time and not do it, you know, not be out there about it. You know, you don't have to get high. You don't have to drink and get drunk to have a good time. That music was always the thing that brought me through. I didn't have to get high. I didn't have to get drunk to enjoy myself. The music is pure, and you can get high off of that. And what I would like to tell my daughter, and what she knows, is that the music is in Daddy. And I've always enjoyed making people happy with my music, no matter what. And that, you know, even long after I'm gone, that, you know, Daddy will be remembered through his music.
Well, being a family man, my kids are most important. My family, my wife, and my kids. I have two daughters, 10 and 6, that are my hearts and the most important thing in my life. My day job, my real job, I'm a lawyer these days, but I'm really just a house music lover and a DJ in Lawyers Club.
Like, I had the opportunity to talk about this to my daughter when we were in the car, and I was like, can you play my CD this time? And I'm in their groove, and I'm all happy thinking, I'm hooking her and my granddaughter up, and my granddaughter going, is this house music? And I'm like, yeah, don't you like it? Nope. You know, I'm feeling bad about it. Like, oh man. But she's only 7. There's plenty of time to explain it to her.
I want people to, first of all, if you don't know anything about house music, go and find out. Get on the web. There are all these house music sites. And I would like people to continue respecting house music and acknowledge the fact that house music has played a very important part in the music that we hear today, and that house music has fostered and helped create, it's a tradition. You know, it's just like your parents grew up on Marvin Gaye or Sam Cooke. They're legends, they're household fixtures, they're never going away, ever. And that's what house music is to us. You know, forever. At 75 years old, if I hear a house beat, you know, I may not be able to get up and dance, but you know, I'll shake something.
If I could make a movie, it would be about the purity of the music and the good times we used to have.
I always want to think that it's so much bigger than me. So much bigger than Marshall or Adonis or Byron or Jesse or Chip or Maurice or any of us who are all just trying to be heard at the beginning. We all wanted to be heard, and I think that was our thing. We all wanted our music to be heard. We all believed in ourselves and wanted other people to believe in us too. And when people heard, they believed. Because it was genuine, because it was real, because it was fresh, it was different. It was so open.
Those are the struggles that a lot of the DJs and house music musicians had to deal with back then. And it was a struggle, but you know, I think that learn and you get stronger by struggling sometimes.
It was really some guys trying to do something with themselves, for themselves. And it touched so many people. It's the ripple that never ends.
It's like I'm no longer a virgin. I have been touched, you know, and it's just something that stays with people. I think, you know, once somebody really gets into it, it's something that follows them through their life. It's just something that people just vibe on and they just keep it as part of them.
Actually, we're still riding the wave. I mean, I told my wife the other day, like, you know, when are you going to stop? You know, you're 37, you've been in it for 20 years. You know, when are you going to give it up? Like, well, right now, I'm still riding the wave. When it hits the shore, then I know it's time to get off.
House music was such a feeling and such an underground thing that once it got commercialized, and like Glenn said, once it grew up, it left home. You know, you can only give birth to a brand new kid. You can't start over again. You can't go backwards. You really can't. And what I do to this day as a DJ in 20 years in the game is I won't stay in a time warp. I'll cater to the new music. I'll mix in the old music, the stuff people are familiar with, because you gotta give them what they're familiar to, and introduce them to the new stuff. And to this day, I'm on radio now to try and make the same infiltration, the same move. Give them the hip hop. Eventually, I'll give them the house. Eventually, I'll give them the disco. And eventually, I'll give them that soulful Latin stuff we play today. But house music will never die.
House music is not over. People are always going to want to dance. Bottom line, the answer to that is no.
There's no words to describe that. You just have to experience it, really, you know, and just be open-minded to it. People listen to house music now and really don't know it. You know, it's gonna always be here. You know, rap may still be here, I'm sure, and jazz, you know, those have their histories in itself. But, you know, you're gonna always have that other world that's listening to house music, or as a continuous thing. I don't think it'll ever die.
I think house DJs never die. They just make tapes. They just burn CDs forever.